Okay, good afternoon. My name is Anna Lael. I'm the district manager for the Kittitas County Conservation District, and I have Sherry Swanson on with me, who has been leading this project on Cooke Creek. So this is the Cooke Creek River Mile 4.25 Passage and Screening Project. See if I can get it to move to the next slide. There we go. Are you seeing the next slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. So just before we jump into this, I just, if this looks familiar, it's because we submitted this in an application for the 2023 solicitation. So it was the Cooke Creek at that time, River Mile 4.25 and 3.86 passage and screening. And we went all the way through, and I think we ended up being an alternate, but did not get funded for that project. So, or for that particular proposal. So, these projects have now been separated into two different applications. We have this one that I'm presenting today that is for the River Mile 4.25 project. And we've also submitted to the Fish Barrier Removal Board for the lower diversion. So that's the 23-1834 application that is hopefully going to be working its way through the FBRB process. So location, so in the Kittitas Valley, this project is located just on the southwest corner of the city of Kittitas, just north of I-90 on Cooke Creek, which is a tributary to, well, to Cherry Creek, which is then a tributary to Wilson Creek and enters the Yakima River here at the mouth of the Yakima Canyon. Fish in Cooke Creek. So primarily this project is aimed to benefit Mid-Columbia summer steelhead. Cooke Creek is also utilized by coho, spring chinook, and I threw lamprey in here, but I don't think we're saying Pacific lamprey at this point. We have found lamprey in Cooke Creek at lower sites, but I think that they're just brook lamprey at this point. So. Okay, so the project description, eliminating irrigation-related mortality at this diversion site. So at River Mile 4.25, it's currently a gravity diversion with no fish screens on it, and also to restore year-round fish passage for all life stages at that location. We have a third bullet on here, water conservation. So as part of this whole project, they are converting 109 acres from surface irrigation to sprinkler irrigation. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move through. So partners in the project. So this is a Yakima Tributary Access and Habitat Program, or YTAP project. And we're using YTAP funding for the project management, the YTAP process for permits, funding for engineering and design, and then of course some funding for construction. We also hope to have Washington State Conservation Commission funding in the Irrigation Efficiencies Program and the Voluntary Stewardship Program. Also, I think we've used a little bit of our professional engineering funding for design as well as we've moved along, but those other funds for construction, both for irrigation efficiencies, of course, for the on-farm component, and voluntary stewardship program for the in-stream and fish screen component. And then Natural Resources Conservation Service, their Regional Conservation Partnership Program, or RCPP. There is a producer contract associated with this for the on-farm component. This map shows progress in this particular watershed. So all of these green dots were fish passage barriers and or unscreened diversions that we have treated. Most of them here are conservation district projects. Some of them over here were Yakima Nation projects in the past. They go back quite a few years. So the project that we're talking about is this red star right here. The Cooke Creek 3.86 project is this red star right there. So this is the location. This shaded area here is all of the ag land associated with this diversion at 4.25. That'll be part of the sprinkler conversion project. And just for historical purposes, These two green dots right here, this is actually the very first YTAP project that was done in, I want to say 2003. So it's the Ellensburg Water Company Cooke Creek intersection, which was corrected so that the canal now passes under the creek, and there was a diversion structure that was rebuilt with screening and passage. So again, just a little zoom in on the actual project site. So Kittitas exit off of I-90 right here for location. City of Kittitas, the shaded part is within the boundaries of the city of Kittitas. This is the ag land where the sprinkler conversion will happen. This is the actual location of the diversion structure. And this is a picture of the diversion looking downstream across it. So the boards are checked up here. There's head gates that are not screened on either side of on either bank in its current condition. And then this is looking upstream at it. They actually can have another board or two put in, but this is pretty close to as high as it's checked up. So a pretty significant barrier. And then the metrics right out of our application, although I did modify this just a little bit. So fish passage barrier, correcting the fish passage is the biggest chunk of the funding here. It'll be a roughened channel is the proposal. In the application, we actually had to say 0 miles of passage restored because there is still that passage barrier below at River Mile 3.86 and a partial one at Fairview Road. Cooke Creek at Fairview Road. And so if in only looking at the River Mile 4.25 site that's in this proposal, upstream to the next partial barrier is 0.36 miles. And that's explained in the narrative in there in a couple of different places. That if both this and the fish barrier removal board application move forward, then it's 0.76 miles. But there is still that partial barrier downstream at Fairview Road. And then the fish screen is the other metric. So 3.5 cubic feet per second screened. It will be a pump diversion, either a river screen or a pump right installed at the site. And these are just some pictures of other projects that we've done. So initially in the conversations about options for this site, it could either be, this is a river screen in Nanum Creek, a project we did a few years ago. And then this is a paddle wheel, like a screen shop screen at another site. And so both options were being considered, but I think we're landing back on the pump screen, and that's how the budget is written for this and the proposal is written for this. This is just an example of a sprinkler system, which would be the on-farm component and some in-stream work. Again, this was at that Nanum Creek project. So just kind of examples. I'll show you a little bit more of the plan set as we move along. So the cost estimate, I know Shane, you said, and you've said a couple of times, we don't have to provide match. We have match in here. I guess we could go back and adjust the budget before we hit and submit. I mean, our request wouldn't change, but the match would change. We have a lot of money involved in this project, a lot of money that's being leveraged both ways to make this whole overall project work. The project match here is some, I think that's Conservation Commission money. This is YTAP money. We have the NRCS payment, which is through the Regional Conservation Partnership Program for the producer for the on-farm component. That's 326. That's not included in the budget. So I know it's there's a lot of numbers here and it's confusing. Our surfboard request, though, is solid at 418,672. So the design process has been moving forward. We had actually hoped to have this project constructed this last winter, but we kind of ran into some issues with just trying to select the options and make sure that the landowner was comfortable and that we could, cobble together the funding for it. And it resulted in us not being able to do it this last winter. The engineers, Anderson, Perry and Associates, did produce a basis of design report and a plan set that is, they note them as 30% in February of this year. We had a technical work group meeting, which is part of our YTAP process when we move ahead on a project. So the permitting agencies and BPA, everyone is involved, along with the landowners and of course the design engineers to work through that process. So this is just a screenshot out of it, and this is not exactly what's going to happen because there are some things in here that are, I think, more along the lines of doing the gravity diversion, and now we're looking at the pump diversion, but the in-stream component of it will be the same. So this is the road that leads into the site. Right adjacent to the site is the city of Kittitas' sewer treatment plant. Not that we're going to have any impact on it, but that's what's right there in that corner. This is the, I guess, call it what you want, Palusta Cascade Trail / John Wayne Trail / Iron Horse State Park. All the names that it ever used to have is right here. They have a bridge that's just upstream of the site. And then there's a bridge located right here that leads into the landowners. There's a house here, and then their other infrastructure is there as well. So just kind of a zoom in on the actual location. And then this part of it, so like I said, this plan set, I didn't put any more of it in here really because it has, I think, more of the kind of gravity option, which is not, doesn't look like that's the way we're going. We're going to go back to pump diversion, which is good news for all of us. But the in-stream component of it is essentially going to be the same as what's shown here. So there's large wood involved. There's a roughened channel. This is essentially the location of the old diversion structure. So that whole thing will come out, and this will all be restored back to a more natural stream configuration and allow for fish passage. This project's relationship to other programs. So I've mentioned RCPP, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. This project falls under the RCPP project called Middle Columbia Steelhead Partnership. And this is one where the Yakima Nation is the lead partner who signed the agreement with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And then there's several kind of sub-partners, of which we are one. North Yakima Conservation District is as well, and their work in the Weenass this last winter was part of this RCPP as well. And then there was obviously on-reservation projects, things that the Yakima Nation was doing. And then I think one, I don't know if that one moved forward or not, one producer contract in Kittitas County. So in working with NRCS, we're very glad for this RCPP money and the producers that we can help and the contracts and things that we can do, but it's been super frustrating and painful at times to try to work our way through their process and what their requirements are. And one of the things that we found out after this was awarded was that so there's a chunk of money in this RCPP for producer contracts for on-farm work. Our share of that was 1.8 million. That has been or will be, there's some that are still in progress, paid out to producers, to farmers for sprinkler conversion projects. These are folks that signed up. So this project is one of those contracts. And then we also had money in this big RCPP project for what NRCS calls water management entity projects. And so for us, that is the Cascade Irrigation District at Coleman Creek project, which is funded through the Fish Barrier Removal Board, has been around for a long time. We've been struggling to get it constructed. We had it, we put it out to bid last fall, but the bids came in way too high. We were able to secure more money. We're moving forward with it, putting it out to bid again in June, hopefully, and we'll hopefully get some better bid prices and have additional money. So hopefully that'll balance out. But one of the things that NRCS requires for these water management entity projects, which we didn't know until we were well into this, is there has to be an associated producer contract and within a particular distance from the water management entity project. So we think that this project with these folks on Cooke Creek is the project that needs to happen in order for them to be able to for NRCS to be able to put money into our Cascade at Coleman Creek project, which hopefully will go to construction this fall. So it's a very convoluted process with them, and it's their distances for projects is completely arbitrary. And And again, not something we knew when we put the application in, that we had to have this associated producer contract. Yeah, so, and then the other program that we're strongly relating this project to is the Voluntary Stewardship Program, or VSP. We actually had VSP capital funding, which was part of the $3 million that's noted on this page. But we had to return those funds because we weren't able to do the project this last winter, and expend the funds by June of 25. We're hopeful that VSP will have funding again, and that might be another source of funding for us if there's a shortfall of funding for this project. The voluntary steward, I don't know if it's hard on Zoom to do this, so I don't know. Does everybody know what the voluntary stewardship program is? Do I need to talk about that at all? Okay, nobody's asking me to, so I'm going to assume that you know. Okay. There we go. And then just really quickly through the Citizens Committee matrix, I just snagged the ones I thought were most applicable to this project. Obviously, this project does affect agricultural interests. This is an agricultural producer, this farming family, and it's 109 acres of cropland that's impacted by both the fish screening and passage work, which is associated with their diversion. So they have to be able to farm this ground. ESA liability, so unscreened irrigation diversion is a liability. That's what we've been working on through YTAP for all these years, 20 plus years, with these small diversions in our tributaries. Economic considerations. So for our community, especially maintaining ag activities, a positive economic impact. The landowner is who is signing the contracts with NRCS for that portion of the funding, and they are required to maintain their practices for the practice life. And so that's a significant period of time. How the project is coordinated with past, present, and future actions. So just again, all of the work with YTAP that we've done, working up all of these tributaries in the Kittitas Valley. This is on our list. It's been on our list for a long time, just trying to work our way through everywhere that we think that we can logically do a project. We haven't always done them completely in order, and that's what's happening here. That YTAP Cooke Creek project, we were years and years into YTAP before we ever connected that to the lower diversions and addressing barriers and screens. And so that work continues. Sometimes opportunities present themselves and things just don't necessarily go in order. That doesn't mean that we're not working on all of those pieces of it and that we won't get there. It just doesn't necessarily happen exactly in order. Landowners are, of course, very involved and supportive of the proposal. As I said, they're the ones signing the contract for the RCPP money and that piece of it. So, you know, they have to be. They're very strongly involved and supportive. And then leveraging other funding. So our request for the $418,000, if you add in all of the other funding that's going to come into this, it's $438,000 for the overall project. And so, yeah, we're leveraging a ton of other funding. And that's it. I didn't know if I needed to go into too much detail since many of you have probably seen this project in the past and don't want to go too far with it, but I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Anna. Trevor?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Anna. I might have missed it, so I apologize if I'm making you say it twice, but can you just kind of talk through the relationship to the 3.86 project, where that stands today?
Did you say the 3.86 project?
Right.
Yes, so that application has been submitted to the Fish Barrier Removal Board. It is on the list, like a lot of projects, waiting to see what kind of funding is going to be available. So it's out there. If there are other funding opportunities that come up where we might be able to address it another way, we would pursue that as well. But right now, it's sitting in the FBRB, I guess, line for funding.
And my understanding is the Senate budget would fund it, the House budget wouldn't. We don't know who wins for another week or two.
Okay. That sounds like every funding source I have out there.
Thank you.
Others?
Looks like Nathan has a question.
Oh, Nathan,
So
go
the
for it.
source, you're working on a diversion and you were talking about using the pump right or the river screen. So the water's coming out of Cooke Creek, is that right, for the irrigation?
That is correct.
I looked it up online and I don't see any water rights for that property.
That's because they don't have Cooke Creek water rights. This is Cascade water, which is delivered down the creek to them.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Nathan. Anybody else? Any questions you were expecting, Anna?
I don't think so. I know the budget is a little bit confusing. And yeah, just trying to make sure I explained how we were addressing both of these diversions that were in that previous application. So I guess that just means I pre-answered the questions I thought were coming.
Yeah. Great.
And what do we, I know we have the 0.36 or so to the next partial. What do we know about the next full barrier? You know that.
Yeah,
we
the
do.
next full barrier is the Cascade at Cooke Creek intersection. So that one looks like it's, it would be a big one. We have not kind of tackled that one yet. One of the things we are doing with our newest RCPP project, so not the one involved with this project, but the next one is doing a lot of planning work with Cascade on their entire system. So that's for sure something we'll kind of look at with that, but we just haven't tackled that one yet. We have a lot of other projects that we've been looking at, and yeah, it's out there, but we're just not quite there yet.
Glad to see this move to a pump, Anna. Thank you.
Yeah, us too.
Awesome. All right. Thank you much, Anna.
Yep, thank you.